Hey guys, Mike here and welcome back to another video on the channel. Just behind me here I have a new leaf spring. I have two actually, funnily enough. This is a Rubicon Express 5.5 inch lifted leaf and it's going in the back of my XJ. It's in the garage, it's jacked up, the tyres are off, the old leaves are out and they're on the floor. And if you remember a couple of videos back, I was trying to diagnose some issues with those old leaf packs I had. We took it out in the forest, we flexed it on rocks. I was trying to figure out what was wrong, and obviously I'd added a leaf about 5 years ago. And even when I took that added leaf out and the springs were behaving how they should, the damage was already done. And in all honesty, I found out now that they did actually send me the wrong leaf pack all those years ago. This was the 3-inch lifted pack, not the 4.5. I was obviously trying to get the lift height I wanted out of them by adding my old rough country leaves to it. Without further ado, I need to get these leaves in, need to get it out, need to get it tested. Let's see how it goes. If you've not done leaf springs before, it can be a bit of a dodgy job. You kind of need to pick the vehicle up very high to let the axle drop, to take the tension off the springs so you can get them out easily. I've kind of done a triangle here, dropped the high lift just a little bit so it's on all 3 points, and I just use a bottle jack to lift and adjust the axle either side, bearing in mind that do not let it drop too much because that braided line will then be under tension. First thing I need to do is drill out this stud hole here for the leaves because it's a bit bigger on the Rubicon Express one. So now this leaf pack can go in. It should be pretty easy. He says. There we go. Let's make sure that sits in place, so that engages on top of there. I think I'm going to use this top hole on the shackle and just leave that loose until it's on its own weight. So with regards to this bushing here, I've left it loose. Even though it made a clicky noise, it hasn't actually torqued it at all, and I've backed it off. Reason being, if you torque these down now, these bushings, and then you set the vehicle back on its own weight, the bushing is going to be stressed and twisted, and it's going to wear out really fast. So it's better to put the springs in, put it on its own weight, drive it around a bit with these just kind of not torqued, but you know, hand tight. And then let it kind of find its feet and then torque it, you know, after you've kind of had a drive around town for a little while. So that's what we're going to do. There we go. Yeah, you can see my problem there, and I do not like that at all, if I'm honest with you. Much less thread engagement. So I'm going to order new U-bolts. I'm going to go and do that right now. Get those on before we leave. This is it. Axle stands are off. Oh no. Oh god. It's way too high. It's way too high. Yeah, I understand the springs need to settle, but I was hoping it would go down a little bit more than that. I mean, the jack was pretty much off tension right from the get-go. Better get out the garage, have a look at it. In fact, no, first things first, I got to adjust these shackles because I think they're in the wrong place and they're probably giving us a little bit too much lift there. That is stupid high. So I guess the question is that shackle angle really that bad? I mean, it's going to have quite a lot of back travel and it's going to have a fair amount of droop on it as well. So it actually doesn't look too bad to me. And the leaf pack is longer. So this leaf eye was actually here before and it was just kind of facing directly up, so that's a good thing too, I think. But I'm going to put it here, I reckon, and I'm gonna see what that does, and then that means we've got a decent amount of droop, a decent amount of back travel. It softens the spring rate a bit, it lowers the lift a tiny bit. That's a little bit less lift now. I mean, the shackle angle is actually rubbish now. I just want it all to be okay. I need to get a cheaper hobby. So I've done much justificationing, and basically this is going to be the best setup, I think. Whoop. Yep. I'm afraid that is just the way it's going to have to be, because if I put the shackle here, it is like all the way back, and it's basically just touching this piece of metal, and there's no back travel unless this gets bent outwards. So looking at the Jeep, you can see the back end is a lot higher than the front, and the back is sitting at 7.5 inches now. I've measured it all, and that's a pretty high lift without an SYE kit. But things got crazy in the workshop, as they always do when I'm creating stuff, and the place becomes an absolute bomb site. And I ended up making some new coil spacers for the front out of 70mm tube steel and some 6mm flat plate. And I got that all welded together, and I popped that in the lathe and spun it out. So even though I didn't think I was going to do it, I'm lifting the vehicle even more, and I actually don't want to do that, but there is no way of me lowering the back end really any more than it is. I can make shorter shackles, but the reality is they're actually quite short anyway, now that I'm using the upper hole. The angles are great, it sits good. They will settle a bit, and I'm sure the back still will be a tiny bit higher than the front, and it should be because of the gear you're putting on board. But this is just 1 inch higher than the original polyurethane spacer that I put in, so I've just added 1 inch to the front to make it 7.5 inches. So yeah, it's pretty simple really. If you're not familiar with this setup, this is just a piece of aluminium tube. I think this is 2.25 inches. I know I work in metric and imperial, and I just basically pick whatever I take my fancy of the two. Get yourself some of this, put it over the top of that, makes it tidy up a bit. But we've got the dampener there, the isolator, you know, for vibration, and there's the coil spacer just up there. So you can pop that over, make it look like, you know, like some sort of like, whoa, what's that? You know, people look at, is that like some kind of Acos? Yeah, mate, yeah, just custom. But anyway, let's get the coil in. It's going to be a pain in the ass because I've got no spring compressors, and I just got to use pry bars, but it's safer, apparently. Whoa! I made a couple of changes to these 1-ton tie rods for this 1-ton steering kit, and one of them was using these huge nuts. These come off of the bottom of the ball joints on the steering knuckles, and they fit the tie rods really well. It just gives you a bit of a better clamping face, and also something pretty heavy to hit on with a hammer if you need to get the tie rod free, unlike the little nuts you get, the little Castle nuts you get with them. So that works really well. And also, when I first got this 1-ton steering kit, I had terrible tie rod roll, and I went through quite a few motions of trying to fix it. And the way I managed to fix it, and this is going to seem real sketchy to some people, is a stainless steel spacer inside the actual Cure polyurethane spacer there, because these just don't provide enough tension. But what you've got to do is get the spacer the right height, so the tie rod can still move freely and not be under tension, but it's just there to take up the slack, if that makes sense, so it doesn't over kind of move. I decided to just take the lower control arm off and do it that way, and then I don't have to muck around. And go. That's it. So it's all back together. That was not fun, actually. Surprisingly, that That's scored low on the fun ometer, but you can see that obviously we need to adjust the track bar because now we've gone up in lift height. We just kind of need a 1/2 inch adjustment just here on the bracket, which is fine. We can adjust the track bar that end, but I'm going to get it on its own wheels first. But that should probably give us an extra inch and a quarter at the front end, leveling it with the back, and thus for costing us now even more in U-joints, long arm kit, slip yoke eliminator, and all the other stuff that now needs to come with that. So that's sarcasm, by the way. Alright, this is the moment of truth. How low are we gonna go? Please, not too high. Oh! This is a broken high lift jack, by the way. Needs a little bit of TLC. Oh yeah, we're going down. That's good. Still going down. Yeah, and here we are. So that's pretty good actually. There we go. Not much higher than it was before. I think the only way really to be sure is to get it out the garage and have a look, but first I've got to get that track bar adjusted. First thing I want to check is actually how much thread engagement I have on this tie rod, because I've forgotten, and that's important, but it looks like we're good. Looks like we'll have an inch and whatever's in there. Yeah, okay. So obviously it would be nice if it was longer, but we've got until there basically in terms of thread, so I think that's okay. Now I've got the vehicle out the garage, you can definitely see that the front is pretty much level with the back teetering up just a little bit, but that's good because that means that when you put load on board, the vehicle probably will be fairly level. But once I got it out the garage, the first thing I did was clamber underneath and have a look at all the driveline angles, the prop shafts, the control arms, basically everything that's going to point towards premature wear and basically vibration when I'm going at high speed. Looking at the slip yoke was the first thing I did on the rear prop shaft, and the engagement is really good and I'm very happy with that. I was worried that would be sticking out too much and that causes vibration, but the engagement's great. That's probably down to the fact that it's the diesel and it has a fairly long rear prop shaft, and also did a rear axle swap to the Chrysler 8 1/4, which has a longer yoke at the front, I believe, a longer pinion than the 35, Dana 35, so it essentially pushed it into the transfer case a little bit more, which has bought me the ability to do quite a high lift on without running an SYE, so that's kind of lucky really. And I've obviously test driven it, I've taken it at high speed, 90 kilometers an hour, which, let's face it, that is high speed for a vehicle like this. But I'm happy to report there's no noticeable driveline vibration, and I mean by no noticeable driveline vibration is that I run 35 mud terrains on asphalt. It's going to dampen or mask some of the driveline vibration that I'm probably getting, but nothing feels scary, if you know what I mean. It's not noticeable. It feels exactly how it felt before on 6 inches of lift basically. And I imagine looking at the rear prop shaft and the way the pinion is facing into the transfer case is probably resulting in getting rid of some of that driveline vibration. But the reality is I have to keep an eye on those U-joints for premature wear. Also, the output bearing on the transfer case is probably going to see excessive wear, and it probably already has. And that could do with being changed. But before all of that, an SYE kit is really needed, whether a hack and tap or a proper one. And I've got a spare T-case at home, so I can actually do that without taking the vehicle off the road. Leaf springs are looking good though. They've got a nice smile on them. Shackles are looking good. The back end is really sturdy. It's not like it was before, where it was literally bump stopping out on bumps. So I'd go over a bump and I'd hear boom, boom, you know, with the bump stops going all the time. The load rating was far too soft on those other leaf springs. I mean, they might be good for someone who's looking for like a 2.5 inch to 3 inch lift, but if you're on 7.5 and you've got a lot of weight on the back like me and you're carrying a lot of gear, they're not adequate at all. Front driveline angles look good, although I've got my pinion angle dialed in pretty good. So the C is leaning back 5 degrees or 4 degrees, so my steering wheel returns to center. Steering feels good, no dead spots, that's nice, but it obviously will result in premature U-joint failure at the front, and it's something you absolutely have to keep your eye on if you lift the vehicle and you start to cross over that line between the compromise of caster and pinion angle. But other than that, looking at the slip joint in the shaft, having to move my axle forward 2 inches a year or so ago because of 35s has resulted in that being pulled out way too much, and that's resulted in it slacking off now. There is play in it, and when it's under load in the winter, for example in 4 high, going down the ice roads, it'll be in 4 high pretty much all winter. Yeah, it's going to wear out real fast, so I need to look at like an Adams drive shaft or something a bit longer to get in the front there. But control arm angles look good, I'm happy with that, not too steep, but on the cards I will fabricate my own long arm kit, I think. I don't think it's going to be that hard to do, and they're pretty expensive, so you know, if I get some tubing, can make some brackets, you know, I think I can use everything I've got there already to turn that into a long arm kit and have Heims one end, a Polly's the other end, and pretty much have a really good setup there. Another thing you can see is I've got a snorkel now. Woohoo! A friend of mine actually has XJ2. He found this online in Sweden for 1,500 crowns, which is, let's say, 150 euros, pounds, dollars, is all kind of the same these days. And it's actually for a Toyota Hilux, but they sell it for the Cherokee, saying it's a pretty good fit, and it is a pretty good fit. It's not that hard to install, and in all honesty, I hate the look of snorkels, and I never really wanted one. But the thing is the dust in this country is severe, and I just want to get that air intake out of the wheel well, which is where it was before, which is a terrible place for an air intake, and get it up out of the way, up high here. And there's a sled dog company in town called Axeaco, and they have lots of nice things, but they have these polyurethane bars that they use for their dog sleds, you know, for temperatures in the winter. It's really strong stuff, but I just got some scrap off them, and I just made a bracket to mount to the snorkel to pull it away from the body of the vehicle. It also means I don't have to drill and pop rivet it into the side of the car, which I really don't want to do, because drilling a hole in this piece, fine, because that's replaceable, but this piece here, that's going to require welding, repainting, whatever else, and I really want to avoid that, because if I ever decide not to have a snorkel, then, you know, I've got 2 holes there, 3 holes. So it's quite nice, but you can get a cyclone filter on the top which spits the dust out as you drive along, but I'll probably just run with a sock for the time being, despite that affecting the air intake, the airflow. Well, that's it from me anyway in this video. Hopefully it's not too long of a video. It started at one end and ended at the other, and I didn't really realise where it was going to go, as I just planned to put the leaves in the back and that was it. But maybe this will help some people out. Maybe you enjoy this video. You know, obviously I do a range of content on this channel, from sort of overland based camping, if you want to call it that, wheeling, it's in the winter, it's in the summer, we do travelling, all kinds of stuff really, and yeah, I mean it's really about that kind of lifestyle basically of being in this part of the world and using a vehicle like this and getting around and doing that kind of stuff. So obviously working on the vehicle is a massive part of that, and now I know they're not as popular videos as like going out and going in the wilderness and camping and stuff. They seem to get a lot more views, but you know, you can't do that without having the mechanical knowledge to be able to maintain this kind of thing, you know, this kind of vehicle. You need to have some kind of mechanical knowledge, especially if you've got a very heavily customized vehicle like me that's quite far from standard, which I wouldn't recommend at all. I'd just buy a Toyota Hilux, put some all-terrains on it, fill it at the back full of camping gear and go, and forget about a lot of the other mechanical stuff. You know, you have to enjoy that kind of thing really, like I do, to want to do it. But I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll be filming our family camping adventure next week and the week after, whether it's a failure or not. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in another video. Take care.